Thank you for tuning in. I'm Daniel Che with continued updates on the Sewol-ho ferry search and rescue operations and investigations. It's the 6th day since Korea's worst ferry disaster in 2 decades. No survivors have been found and death toll continued to rise. We go over to our Ji Myung-kil at the Paengmok-hang Harbor live, just 20 kilometers from the accident scene. Myung-kil, search and rescue operations continued through the days and nights. What's the latest?
Yes, Daniel, 15 families from the Jindo auditorium will arrive here at the Paengmok-hang Harbor. They'll get on board a ship to visit the accident of the Sewol-ho ferry site. Families are expected to weep and cry as soon as they arrive. They will feel the pain and sorrow to have lost their loved ones. After visiting the disaster scene, they'll return to the Paengmok-hang Harbor.
Well, it must be very excruciating for the families. How have the rescue operations have been going so far, Myung-kil?
Yes, Daniel, the rescue operations were attempting to enter the 3rd floor since noon today, but we have not heard of any good news as of yet. They are focusing their search on the 3rd and 4th floors of the vessel. The 3rd floor is where the vessel's cafeteria is located, and the 4th floor is where the cabins are, and where most of the students on board were believed to be at the time of the sinking. Nearly 240 people are still missing in the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, and nearly 90% of those are from Tanwon High School in Ansan. The divers are working around the clock, and in addition to the 5 guide ropes that had been attached to the sunken vessels, they added one more, securing another route into the ferry.
Well, it's definitely a race against time, Myung-kil, for the rescue teams as they seek survivors. What's the latest number we have?
Yes, the death toll has risen to 64 and 6 more bodies were recovered today. The bodies were identified as female students and their DNA samples were taken. The bodies were found on the 4th floor of the vessel, which, like I said earlier, was where the cabins of the students were. The number of survivors remain unchanged at 174. The weather conditions at the accident site look quite favorable, with clear skies and tidal waves around 1 meter level. This was Ji Myung-kil reporting live from Paengmok-hang Harbor.
Thank you for that, Myung-kil. Moving on, in the days that immediately followed the Sewol-ho ferry accident, search and rescue efforts were seriously hindered by fast-moving tidal currents. But thankfully, conditions are expected to improve this week, which should help divers navigate through treacherous waters near the sunken vessel. Our Park Ji-won reports.
Calm waves and clear skies. Wind speeds and wave heights were cut in half on Monday compared to the previous day as a high-pressure front moved into the area. Weather conditions have finally turned favorable for search and rescue crews in waters off Jindo Island, and the clear weather is forecast to continue through this Friday. Strong tidal currents, which significantly hampered the rescue operations last week, have also slowed.
Last week was the time when the current speeds were the fastest, and from the 19th it has been slowing down. Starting this Tuesday, the speeds will be at their slowest.
Last week, the maximum speed of the currents in the area were 2.8 meters per second, or over 10 kilometers per hour. That's expected to drop as low as about 1 meter per second, especially from this Tuesday to Thursday. When tidal currents slow, underwater visibility improves with less floating particles in the sea. That's why experts believe this week will be a turning point in search operations inside the sunken Sewol-ho ferry. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geun-hye has spoken out in no uncertain terms about the captain and crew of the sunken Sewol-ho ferry, saying their actions on the day the ship capsized were akin to murder. She also had something to say about public officials who have been criticized for the rescue operations. Our Yoo-Rian has more.
먼저 무엇보다 선장과 일부 승무원들의 행위는 상식적으로 도저히 납득할 수 없고 용납될 수 없는 살인과도 같은 행태였습니다.
Likening the act to murder, President Park Geun-hye criticized the actions taken by the captain and his crew at the time of the accident during a meeting with senior secretaries on Monday. A communications log had revealed that the captain and crew members of the Sewol-ho ferry had called on passengers to stay where they were during the time of the accident. President Park vowed to make sure justice is handed down.
저는 반드시 단계별로 철저하게 규명해서 무책임과 부조리, 잘못된 부분에 대해서는 강력히 책임을 물을 것입니다.
The captain and 2 other crew members are now charged with negligence of duty and violation of maritime law. President Park also had pointed words for public officials, some of whom have been facing criticism for inadequate efforts in rescue operations.
국민들이 공무원을 불신하고 책임 행정을 하지 못하고 있다는 비난을 받는다면 그 책무를 소홀히 하고 있는 것이고 그 자리에 있을 존재의 이유가 없는 것입니다.
During the days following the accident, families of the victims grew furious at the government-related personnel and also the Coast Guard for making conflicting announcements on the number of victims and survivors. The families also expressed frustration that the numbers of rescue personnel dispatched to the site and the numbers announced by the government did not match up. Yurian, ARIRANG News.
While the nation mourn and pray for some positive developments, there are those taking advantage of the horrible tragedy still unfolding in the southwest of the nation. Authorities are warning the Korean public not to be deceived by the latest text messaging scams. The Science Ministry said they have so far identified 7 kinds of so-called smishing scams using text messages that lure people into phishing sites that extract personal data. They warn people not to click on any links sent to their mobile phones and to immediately delete these messages since they could be embedded with malicious codes. The government and police also said they will hunt down and punish those who post false information on the internet regarding the ferry accident. And fresh speculations are rising as a personnel from Danwon High School claims that he or she received a phone call from the Jeju Coast Guard at around 8:10 a.m. on the day of the accident. For details, we now go to our Na Yeon-kyung standing by at our news center. Kyung-kyung, what's this all about?
Well, Daniel, the Gyeonggi-do Provincial Office of Education held a press briefing earlier in the day. It said the person received a call from someone who claimed to be from the Jeju Coast Guard. The caller asked for a phone number of a teacher that went on that field trip with more than 300 Danwon High School students that they could reach, saying they lost contact with the Sewol-ho ferry. Now, the time of the call is said to be around 8:10 a.m. Wednesday. That's about 40 minutes before the Sewol-ho ferry is recorded to have first contacted the Marine Traffic Service at its destination, Jeju Island. And with this development, questions about whether Jeju Coast Guard officials knew if there was something wrong with the ferry well in advance are being raised. If that is the case, it looks like Jeju officials might face heavy criticism for not taking emergency measures promptly. An official investigation will determine that, of course, but the Jeju Coast Guard initially denies having made that call, saying there's no reason for the Jeju Coast Guard to be involved since the ferry was sinking at an area that is controlled by the Coast Guard's West Regional Headquarters. Daniel.
Right, we still need to dig for more facts, and we are still probing and casting a huge net to find out all the details about the case.
That's right.
How is the investigation overall progressing, Hyun-kyung?
Well, Daniel, as you know, currently 2 separate investigations are ongoing. One is being conducted jointly by the prosecution and the police. The other is handled solely by the prosecution. The latter is a special probe launched under Prosecutor General Kim Jin-tae's direct order on Sunday. And earlier today, the joint investigation team received arrest warrants for 4 additional crew members. This comes after 3 crew members, including the captain, were arrested on Saturday. And we are getting reports that the 20-year-old Sewol-ho ferry underwent months of renovation to extend its sailing life for more than 7 years. Some 20 people related to the renovation have been summoned for questioning as well. The ferry operator Cheonghaejin Marine Company is also under investigation. Travel bans have been imposed on the operator's president Kim Han-sik, as well as Yu Byung-on, the former former chairman of the operator's parent firm and his two sons, who are the biggest shareholders of the company. And in the meantime, one of the engineers of the ferry that was grilled by investigators on Sunday night reportedly attempted to hang himself. His colleagues found him just before he could go through with it. The person has been transferred to a nearby hospital and is reportedly in stable condition. Daniel.
Well, it looks like the list grows. Thank you for those updates, Hyun-kyung. With many more clues emerging about what might have caused the Sewol-ho ferry to sink, the puzzle is slowly being put together. Our Kim Min-ji reports on the three knock-on factors that experts suspect caused the ferry to capsize.
Around 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, April 16th, the Sewol-ho ferry passed through treacherous waters which are notorious here in Korea for their strong currents. 18 minutes later, the ferry veers suddenly, which is being pointed to as the first factor in the sinking. The stern is believed to have turned 80 degrees to the right.
What it means by the vessel supposedly making a P turn is that the helm was turned to the right, then back again. But the boat didn't come back to its original position. Operations momentarily froze, which results in the ferry making a complete turn.
Due to centrifugal force, the vessel tilts to the left. Now this is when the second factor may have come in. Grips holding down on the ferry's freight may have come loose, causing containers and vehicles in the cargo compartment to lift sharply to one side. The weight concentrated on just one side of the ferry causes it to tilt even further. If the vessel had enough dynamic stability, the vessel could have bounced back to the other side and maintained balance. However, due to renovations to increase the vessel's capacity, the center of gravity on the ship had been raised from its original design.
Due to the expansion of the ship, the upper structure has been changed, making the center of gravity much higher. If the center of gravity and buoyancy are far apart, the dynamic stability decreases.
Experts say the reduced dynamic stability caused the vessel to completely submerge because it wasn't able to recover from the initial tilt. They add that the Sewol-ho ferry may not have had enough ballast water, which maintains the balance of the vessel in order to carry more cargo. As all three factors could have been prevented, experts say the sinking will likely be attributed to human error. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
A desperate call for help. Newly released transcripts gives a better sense of what happened in the minutes after the Sewol-ho ferry encountered trouble, and they show a time of confusion and panic. They also reveal that the crew hesitated to evacuate its passengers. Our Connie Lee has more.
First call for help at 8:55 a.m. on Wednesday, April 16th. The listing Sewol-ho ferry first contacts traffic services in Jeju, the ferry's destination. And around 9 a.m., maritime officials tell the crew to prepare for an evacuation. Please put on life vests and get ready, as people may have to abandon ship. The unidentified crew member replies, though, it's hard for people to move. The ferry then gets in contact with a closer communications tower at Jindo. By 9:14, traffic services asks if the passengers are able to escape. Around this time, the ship has already listed as the first rescue teams arrive. 9:25, Jindo maritime officials tell the captain of the ferry to make the final decision to evacuate the passengers. The crew member disregards that comment and asks if passengers evacuate now, could they be rescued right away. By around 9:30, the Sewol-ho reports that the Coast Guard is rescuing some of the passengers, but by this time the ferry has already listed severely. Then around 9:38 in the morning, the ferry reports that Coast Guard ships have arrived and that the ship has listed 60 degrees. That was the last report from the ferry, 42 minutes after its first call for help. The transcript shows no record that the captain ordered passengers to evacuate, but the captain and many of his crew members were reportedly some of the first ones to get off the troubled ferry. More than 5 days after the accident, more than 230 people are still missing.
Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
어서 돌아와 보고 싶어. 사랑해, 얘들아.
We shift our focus back to the victims of this disaster. Once bodies are recovered, or better yet, if survivors are found, they will be brought to the Paengmok-hang Hospital located in Korea's southern Jeollanam-do province, where hospital staff have been working around the clock. Our Kim Hyun-bin is standing by there. Hyun-bin, what's the latest?
Hey Daniel, no bodies or survivors have arrived since I've been here earlier in the morning, and this hospital is one of the 5 that is processing the bodies for identification as well as collecting DNA samples. All the bodies were transferred to hospitals near their hometowns as of yesterday. A medical helicopter is on standby along with 2 medics so that the hospital can efficiently transport rescue survivors or the deceased. Paengmok-hang Hospital officials say 50 beds have been reserved for any possible survivors that are found, and 20 doctors and nurses are on standby 24/7. As for the survivors, 31 were hospitalized here at the accident last week, and currently there are 11 still receiving treatment. Since rescue operations are well into its 6th day now, hopes of finding survivors are slowly dimming, and officials are expecting more bodies to be transferred here in the coming days. Back to you, Daniel.
Well, as for the survivors rescued on the first day, Hyun-bin, I hear they are being treated and they are experiencing severe depression and anxiety. The hospital actually has forbid anyone from visiting them except for family members. What about them? How are they doing, Hyun-bin?
Not well. Doctors say all the survivors are suffering from post-traumatic stress, and roughly half are under medication, which is a clear indication of the severity of their condition. Family members are also suffering from shock. One of the fathers of a missing student suffered a stroke, and some of the survivors are suffering from depression and even amnesia. This has been Kim Hyun-bin reporting live at Paengmok-hang Hospital. I'll be bringing more updates throughout the afternoon. Back to you, Daniel.
Thank you for that, Hyun-bin. And bodies that are first transferred to Paengmok-hang Hospital are identified and then released to their families in Ansan. We connect live to our Connie Kim, who is standing by at the Korea University Ansan Hospital, where many of the fallen have arrived. What's the latest over there, Connie?
Hi, Daniel. I'm standing by at the funeral hall of Korea University Ansan Hospital. Now, 6 of the deceased that were brought here from Mokpo still lie here, and 4 of them are expected to return to their families tomorrow morning. Now, starting from Wednesday, a joint memorial altar is expected to be set up in Ansan Memorial Hall, which is about 10 minutes away from here. Parents of the deceased have delayed releasing their children after requesting an autopsy to find out the direct cause of death. They want to know whether their children died from drowning or from hypothermia after waiting inside an air pocket in the vessel. Now, this is critical in determining whether the government was fast enough with their rescue operations, and parents say they'll hold the government responsible if this was not the case. The bodies of 8 victims from this tragedy were released to their families today, and the city of Ansan continues to grieve for those it has lost so suddenly and so tragically.
Well, it must be a very traumatic time for everyone there. How about the students? They've survived this horrible ordeal, but how are they holding up at the moment?
Well, there are currently 81 patients receiving medical treatment here, and according to the director of the hospital, they say that the students that arrived here who are suffering from mental distress and depression have gotten much better since they first arrived. But they'll continue to monitor the students, and saying that 1 out of 4 students are not sleeping well and that about 20% of them will need psychological therapy. After monitoring their status, the hospital will decide whether students can return to their daily lives within the next 3 days or so. A team composed of experts from the welfare and education ministries, the city of Ansan and Gyeonggi-do province will continue to look after them. This was Connie Kim reporting live from Korea University Ansan Hospital.
For that, Connie, all the victims are going to need our full support in what will be a very difficult road ahead of them. That was our Connie Kim reporting live from Korea University Ansan Hospital, where many of the victims from the disaster are being treated. The terrible loss of so many young souls has plunged the entire nation in deep sorrow and despair. In respect to the victims and the still missing, TV stations have canceled entertainment shows. Baseball and soccer matches are being played in silent stadiums, and the public have massed for candlelit vigils. Our Ji Myung-kil reports.
An accident that has left so many in disbelief. People all over the country had their eyes and ears fixed on news of the ferry disaster. It was to share the weight of the tragic accident and console families who were told by their children that they love them and that they shouldn't worry. Weekend prime time. Laughter has faded from what would normally be a fierce entertainment competition between the major television networks. With one of Korea's favorite sports, baseball season in full swing, all the loudspeakers and cheerleaders have disappeared from the stadiums. All that is left is the players who solemnly play without any cheering or events. People in Korea are sharing the pain as if it is a loss of their own, something the country has experienced in times of need.
I wanted to help in any way that I could, so I joined the candlelight vigil. I really hope that with the whole country coming together, that a miracle will happen.
During the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the Korean public donated their wedding rings and other gold items to help the country pull out of the economic crisis. And after one of the worst oil spills off the Taean coast in 2007, the area was able to recover its nature after an endless number of volunteers helped clean up the spill. Regardless of whether it is for good or bad times, the nation has been able to come together, setting individual needs aside and sharing a spirit of unity.
Korea has a strong collective sentiment. This is something that is just as important as collective intelligence. The entire country is sharing the sentiment that the students in the sinking are not simply children of other families, but actually part of an extended family. This is the force that brings the country together as one.
Ji Myung-kil, ARIRANG News.
Weather, of course, plays a vital role in major search and rescue operations over there in Jindo. Let's check in with our Michelle Park for the latest. Michelle?
Well, the weather seems to be cooperating with the search and rescue efforts off the southwestern coast. Now, although it is still a bit windy, the tides are pretty calm. And the sky is looking very clear with a visibility of up to 14 kilometers, and that will extend even further throughout the day, with the highs reaching up to 16 degrees. Now, as for the tidal currents, they are slowing in the area. They'll slow down even further at 6:40 this evening, giving the rescuers an easier time as they search the Sewol-ho vessel. Now, the current temperature of the water in Jindo is at 11.7 degrees Celsius with the wind blowing at 8 meters per second, which is down from the morning, and the height of the wave is at a 0.6 meters, which is half of what we had from yesterday. Now, that's all I have at this moment. I'm Michelle Park, and back to you, Daniel.
Well, for now, those are the updates we have. We will return with more at 6 p.m. Korea time. Thank you for watching.